Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 205, I was very lucky to have Corianne Holmes on the podcast. Corey to her friends. She is, how can I put it? She is an American expat living now in New Zealand in her tiny house. She is part of the FIRE movement and she is an entrepreneur and author. We talked about a number of things about why she moved over to New Zealand, all the way from the comforts of Boston. And basically, we talked about how she brought her fellow along for the journey too. We also talked about some of the travel she's done around the world. And yeah, what was the sort of key things she's learned along the way. We also talked about, the FIRE movement and what some of her hopes, dreams, and goals are. All in all, it was a great conversation. Real joy to have her on the show. I look forward to talking to her again in the future. And please sit back, enjoy the show. Remember, subscribe. It really helps. If you can drop a like or a message on about the podcast, that'll be great too. So sit back, enjoy the show, and loving it. Peace and love to you. I enjoy the show. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Go, baby, go. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Today on episode 205. Woo! I have Corianne Holmes on the podcast. Wait, before I even say anything to her, well, yeah, she's one of these FIRE people joining that movement. And she lives in a tiny house in New Zealand, which is quite interesting, seeing that she's an expat from America. Not forgetting that she's an entrepreneur, author, and maybe she tap dances too, but I'm not entirely sure. Corianne, how are you today, my lady?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure's all mine. The pleasure's all mine. I have to ask you now. I know I read a bit in your bio about what possessed you to like go, hey, you know what? I don't like being in near civilization. I just want to be on an island, many, 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 many miles away from everything else. What possessed you to do this?
Well, originally it was only supposed to be a year. So
Oh,
that's very common. You hear young people want to go off here, go travel. So I decided to come to New Zealand to get my master's degree in business management. And I told my boyfriend at the time, I was like, it's only going to be a year. You can come with me if you want. And he was gung ho. So we both came. I completed my program and then we loved it so much. We just stayed.
okay. Look, okay. Now this is the thing. Okay. Like if you're doing like an MBA, like there are many sort of places in the Northern Hemisphere which would take you and have the realm of adventure. Now,
Yeah.
going that going, you know what? I'm doing an MBA. Yeah, where are you gonna go? I'm gonna go out of country. Oh, going to Europe, Paris, maybe, London, Germany, Shanghai if you're going further afield. You went New Zealand. God damn. What did your friends and family say to that? Just like what?
Oh, it's so funny that you say all those places because I've studied abroad in all those places. So my major, my major in college, well, which is university, was French and East Asian studies. So
yeah.
my junior year, I studied abroad for 6 months in Aix-en-Provence in France. And then I studied for 6 months in Shanghai, China. So I also speak Chinese. So I'd been there, done that, and I wanted something different. So yeah, there we go.
It's like, oh, okay. Like, uh, do your friends and family sometimes worry about you? You look out, you step out with a bag, you look to the horizon and go, that's the direction I'm going.
Yep, that was pretty much me. At about 14, I was like, I'm out of here. So I went to a boarding school for high school. But I even remember when I was 8, that was the first time I went to sleepaway camp for 2 weeks. and I just could not wait to get out of the house. I was just ready for adventure. So it's been a long time that I've been out and about and on my own. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. So, like, with regards to this spirit of adventure, like,
Mm.
okay, would you say, like, I can't imagine it's over, but like, yeah, because okay, I've seen some of the stuff you've been up to, but yeah, but what kicks that off? You said you were 8 sleepaway camp, and that was it. But what made you like a boarding school? Yeah, study up abroad, and like, yes, keep on going. What's that
I mean,
like?
I think it really probably originated from my love of books. My mom would read to my sister and I when we were really young, and both my parents didn't have an opportunity to travel very much when they were children. So they really instilled that as a goal. So, like, don't invest your money in purses and shoes and material things, but invest your money in experiences because you can never get those back. So I'm really, really appreciative. I remember one vacation I took with my mom and my sister to Morocco. We were so, so young, and it was just my mom and the two of us. And she handled us perfectly well. We were both under the age of 10. And it's just such a great memory, and you can never recreate that. And I am so thankful that I had my opportunities to travel and study abroad when I did, especially because of the global pandemic. Well, I don't know if you know this, but New Zealand is literally closed off. So anybody who leaves, they don't necessarily know if they can come back. Just a crazy situation. But if you don't travel when you can, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, like like yes. Little can I say about the craziness which is going on in New Zealand. Now, look, don't get me wrong. Like, okay, New Zealand, from what the you just need to watch Lord of the Rings, and you're like, oh my God, it's like that's God's country right there. It's like going, yeah. Every time you see anything Lord of the Rings, I expect it to just say New Zealand, sponsored by the tourist board. But one of the
Yeah.
things which I've gone like, oh my God, the lockdown situation you guys have like gone into, it is from an outsider's point of view. Look, from an outsider's point of view, living in the UK, look, if look one case, look, nothing. It's like, yeah, thousands upon thousands. Yeah, there may be, and like, yeah, then we might go. You know what? We might lock it down. But at this moment in time, it's not looking like that at all. But when I heard from a news report that there was one case and then the whole country was locked down, that
Yeah.
is a tad bit extreme. I don't know if you're allowed to say anything or anything like that. Like,
Oh, no, I agree. It's extreme, but that's because New Zealand is so small. My dad is a physician, and my husband does some welding in the hospital. So he's done a lot of maintenance in the Dunedin hospital. That's the town we're in.
yeah,
And it is so tiny. There is no way in hell they could ever be able to take care of people if there was more than, I don't even think they have enough ICU beds just as it is for normal accidents, people in car crashes, people who have cancer or whatever it may be. So that's one of the biggest reasons why they had to do the lockdown so quickly, is that they know that their health system would just be completely overwhelmed.
wow.
There's a huge crisis with not enough doctors, not
Mm.
enough surgeons, not enough nurses. So the people who have been able to, some people have been able to come in, but there's just not enough. It's just too small of a country.
Wow. So wow,
Yeah.
that is a bit crazy because like you think about it, like, oh, okay, New Zealand, yeah. Thought it would be kind of up there with the sort of population, doctors, nurses, everything like that. Um, um, I think if anyone's looking to emigrate to New Zealand and happens to be a doctor, nurse, surgeon, like yeah, like maybe an electrician or like a plumber, you might be in luck there. It's like
Once the
yeah,
borders open, yeah, that's another problem is the borders have been closed. So the normal amount of immigrants, and usually actually the UK is one of the biggest draws,
yeah.
but it's so hard to get those spots to get through quarantine that it just is pretty much dried up completely.
Oh, sorry to hear this. Like, hopefully the quarantine life hasn't affected you too badly out there, or you just now used to it. It's just your day to day.
It honestly, we've been very fortunate. So I think in 2020, I wore a mask maybe 4 times.
It's like, lockdown.
That's just a casual flex, just a little flex there.
I wore a mask 4 times. It's like I'm looking at you with envious eyes. Only 4 times. Huh?
I know, right? Like, that's crazy. It's crazy to think about. I took my first vaccination. I was in the vaccination clinic and no one was wearing a mask. And I thought to myself, this is the only place on earth that is vaccinating for COVID-19 with no masks. It was crazy. That's since changed, obviously. But at the time, we hadn't had any cases yet, so that was crazy. But yeah, it's been hard. I did lose my grandmother in September 2020, and I was unable to go back home, and that really affected me. And another consequence, it's like a slight challenge, is a lot of Kiwis that I've spoken to don't understand the gravity of the situation, because I know people personally who've died from COVID-19, and people in New Zealand really don't believe that it's a serious problem, which is kind of shocking. But that's just because it hasn't knocked on their own doorstep yet. But because I'm still connected so much with my family in the States, it's very personal, and it's actually quite upsetting to hear that,
Yeah, no, and like no, and with regards to the sort of connections which bind us, like yes, being able to visit like friends, family, it's one of the strongest things we can ever do. And I think with regards to a lot of it, like before the pandemic, pre-pandemic, I think we used to take that for granted a little bit too much. And like, getting back into it, it's like, we've got to be careful we don't fall back into that same type of routine, because, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of look at, like, I know there's been, not all the time, but there's a couple of times it's like, just need some personal time, or just like, maybe I shouldn't make the effort, but you kind of like, oh, wait, you couldn't have done this. You weren't allowed to do this for 18 months. It was like, if you did, you were like, yes. Trouble, like, it's not so much trouble will come your way. It'll just be like, when could you meet up with people? And people can get lost on the way. And people have lost people on the way. But how do you value those people, those connections around you, I say,
Definitely. And that's what we have to do, especially during these times. We really need to be able to bind together. And so I'm really fortunate. My parents are trying to move to New Zealand. They hope to retire here. So hopefully I'll have some family close by soon. We'll see.
It's like, don't be like, you know what? I've had enough of New Zealand. I'm off. No. They'll beat you with a stick. Just a no. It's like, no, you're staying here. But it must be kind of a bit of a mind-blowing thing, because look, you've come from the third largest country in the world to now one of the smallest countries in the world. And but like, to do that, like, I don't know if you're like, you're going against your American genealogy or whatnot, but you went, hey, you know what? While I am in this smaller country in the world, let me just like, let me build a teeny house on wheels. What on earth is that about? What on earth is that about? I've just got to be careful. I told you before the podcast, like, like, if you see a young lady just bursting, like, tell me you're all. Like, I will have to leave. Just like, this podcast will be invaded. But tell me, what possessed you to do this?
One of the common misconceptions about moving abroad is that it's easy. There will always be challenges, and we definitely experienced that when my partner and I moved to New Zealand. We were living completely different lifestyle than what we were living. We were living together in Boston before we moved. And so we didn't have many friends when we first got here. We only had one vehicle. So we used to have two, we used to have jobs and travel a lot in Boston. But when we moved to New Zealand, we had one car that we shared. I was going to school, Patrick was working, and our social lives were like basically non-existent. And we really, really struggled to stay together as a couple and also like to fill our time. Like what do you do with your time if you don't have people to hang out with? We didn't have a lot of room for the hobbies that we used to do. So we decided, also on top of that, we were also paying a lot for our rent. So we were paying about the same on my condo in Boston that I was in Christchurch. That's because Christchurch has just had an earthquake. So that means that rents and properties and flats were at a premium and they were very expensive. So we're like, okay, we need something fun to do to take up our time. We need a project because I was studying and Patrick would get out of work at 3:00 and he'd have nothing to do, just be sitting around. And he needs to be working with his hands. He's one of those type A people that I think they call it active resting. So he will not sit on the couch and watch TV with a beer. He's not that kind of man. He needs to be actively tinkering with something, taking it apart, fixing, painting, something.
Yeah.
So with those two things in mind, we thought we'd already heard about the tiny house movement a little bit. We'd always wanted to do it. And so we're like, well, we saved all this money to move to New Zealand. We saved about $20,000. We didn't need to use it because Patrick got a job right away.
Nice.
And so we're like, let's just use our life savings on a tiny house. And I think that's really important when you're in your 20s to take risks because you can always recover. You have enough time left to recover. So that's why you hear about like people who start businesses in their 20s, drop out of school and start Facebook, do this and that, move across the country. They all tend to do those things when they're younger because if it fails, they have enough time to recover and get back on, the saving train. So we figured, what did we have to lose? If we needed to leave, we could always sell it. And if it didn't work out, we'd just go back into a flat. What's the big deal, So, so yeah, that was our decision. And I'm really glad we kept with that because we were able to save so much money by living in a tiny house.
I hear you. I do agree with you that yes, if you're doing stuff like this in your 20s, it is easier. It's not so much like I would say it's not so much the recovery time. It is part of it, but it's a case of you tend to have less responsibilities. Bless you, by the way.
Thank you.
No worries. Because as each decade goes by, like, okay, if you hit your late 20s, early 30s, you might have kids and like this is the whole thing. Then you might have to pay an extra bill here, an extra bill there because your lifestyle, like everyone adjusts to it and they don't sort of like cut their belt a little bit shorter. I know you're about to like go into another thing, but we won't go there yet.
No, you're fine.
Yeah. But as each decade goes by, the energy levels might not be the same because, okay, you might not be working out as much. You might be doing a job which is even more demanding, like sort of, okay, a 9 to 5. Yeah, for a large percentage of office people, 9 to 5 is a bit of a fallacy. So, you know what I mean? So, yeah, doing that type of thing you're doing in your like 20s is like great because
it's over. My 20s are over.
Hey, I can't see that. Yeah, in your 20s, it's all good. But the whole sort of recovery time for doing things, it's important, but I think it's also important that people push themselves to do things which are uncomfortable to help themselves grow and to basically find out new things about themselves,
Absolutely. Yeah. And this was definitely a push. It was a huge challenge for me. I'm not a handy person. I'd never used power tools before. So I was basically just helping Patrick in any way that I could. He really took the lead on the project. And I think that really helped motivate him because he had never been to another country. Well, he had never been off the continent, I should say, before he moved to New Zealand. He'd never been on an international flight that long. like, it was just crazy the amount of trust this man had in me. So he'd never been to New Zealand before he moved here. So I think he was just really almost intimidated by that. Also, he was very concerned about using the metric system. That was what scared him a lot. He's like, I'm gonna look like an idiot when I show up to work. I'm gonna be like holding out my tape measure. I'm not gonna know what I'm doing. I'm like, Patrick, it's okay. You're a smart man. You'll figure it out. And obviously you pick it up like that. But so I think building the tiny house was a really good motivational thing, like just for him to feel confident in his skills and being in a new country. And then for me, it was just, yeah, like you said, I really pushed myself, challenged myself to think outside the box, to think creatively, because we didn't have a lot of money. As I said before, $20,000 doesn't go very far. And so we tended to rely on recycled materials to build our tiny house. So the tiny house was like 80% recycled materials. Luckily, well, unluckily, Christchurch has had an earthquake, so that meant that there was a lot of salvage materials that from demolished homes and things. So we were able to get like our windows and doors, corrugated iron. We had like an old kitchen we put in our tiny house. So a lot of that stuff we were able to get a lot cheaper.
All right. Like, this is the thing. One of the things I have got to wonder, like, what was one of the sort of greatest challenges or lessons you learned while doing this tiny house, either for yourself or for your other half, Patrick, the very trusting man who flew to the other side of the world for you.
He did indeed. Let's see. I'd say probably I think just the conversations that we would have, just literally about to pull our hair out, unsure about what next step to do or some kind of solution that we needed in the tiny house. And as someone who's not handy, who doesn't work in the construction industry, who's never built anything before, sometimes my ideas were valid and useful and helpful just because I had an outside view and an outside opinion. And I think that really helped define our relationship, is that Patrick and I are very, very different people, different backgrounds, different education levels, but together, like when our two brains are put together, there really is very few challenges that we can't overcome. And so figuring out how we work together has allowed us to be able to open a business, start a business together. If we hadn't done that, and also, should I mention, live in a tiny house with another human being is also extremely challenging. But you get to know the other person really well. You get to trust them, and you just have to figure it out. And I think that's been really helpful in our relationship. And I think that it's given me confidence and it's given him confidence. So I think that that's probably the biggest thing that we learned from building the tiny house.
Fantastic. I just can only imagine. It's like, okay, baby, look, okay, we can't both run around the house at the same time. So, stop. You go that direction, I'll go that direction. I can still see you. Yes, I know. But let's just do that. Let's make it happen. Great. It's like yeah. So what's the upstairs of your tiny house like?
Say that again?
What's the upstairs of your tiny house like?
It's the opposite?
I'll say the upstairs, the top level.
What upstairs?
I know.
There's no upstairs.
I know.
It's one level.
Yeah.
It's crazy. A lot of people don't realize that, but not every tiny house has a loft. And not every tiny house is as tiny as our house. It's only 14 square meters. So it's on the small side. You see some of these huge ones, with the big size bathroom and the lofts, plural, but ours has none of that.
Well, hey, look, put it this way. I understand. Look, because, okay, from what I've seen, it's on wheels as well. Yeah. So you can, can you hook it up to the back of a car and drive it away?
Yeah. So we built it in Christchurch on a llama farm. It was the only land we could rent.
Yes.
We had like all these llamas like looking through the window, stepping on our shit, and just being so rude and so nosy. And so then we moved it next door to another farm, and that's where we lived for a year. And then we moved it a little bit south to a smaller town, even.
Mhm.
And then we finally moved it to Dunedin, where it is now. Yeah. So really nerve wracking moving your tiny house on the road, I have to say. Very nerve wracking. Yeah.
Right. Like with regards to, say, your next tiny house, do you think you'll stick with the same format, or do you think you'll maybe do a little bit bigger, maybe a shipping container? Who knows? Like, just get out.
So we So we were thinking about that. So we had been living in the tiny house for about 3 years. And we were like, okay, what's the next step? Do we want to get into a real house? Do we want to build an addition onto our tiny house? Do we want to do a shipping container house? And my husband's a welder. And so he really, really investigated the shipping container house. And he decided that it wasn't really cost effective in New Zealand. Other places you can get shipping containers for really cheap, but
Uh,
down here they're almost at a premium. So shipping container houses were out. The tiny house, so in New Zealand, in my book, I do have a whole chapter about the legality of tiny houses in New Zealand, which is a little particular compared to other places in the world.
how
But the
so?
legality is a gray area. So the two rules for a tiny house is it has to be movable. So there was a case where someone said, "Oh, your house bus hasn't moved in 30 years. Is it a building or is it still a house bus?" And the law says actually it's a building because it ain't going anywhere. So if it stays immovable, you're out. It has
Mm,
to be movable, and you cannot have someone living in it permanently. So what does that mean? That's open to interpretation, right? So what's your definition of permanent? If we travel 2 weeks out of the year, is that impermanent? Or if we have someone, staying there as a staycation, is that permanent? So we
yeah.
didn't really feel like pushing the envelope too much. We'd already been in our house in the same place for a full year. We're
Hmm.
like, we get in trouble if we stay in a tiny house for too long. So at that point, we had easily paid ourselves back for the original $20,000 that we saved up for our tiny house. We did that in the first year, which is shocking. So just because we weren't paying rent, or we were paying a lot less rent, I should say, we were
Yeah.
paying about $100 a week for the land.
Oh, nice.
Um, so we had a nice little nest egg ready to go, and we already had the experience of building a tiny house. We had land, and so we decided to build a bigger size house. And we were able to do it using cash, basically. And so now we're mortgage free in it's about 80 square meter house. And that's where I am right now talking.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Like this is the
Yeah.
thing. I'm surprised you didn't consider doing like what can I say? The van life movement, which is being really sort of big over is it been the last 3, 4 years? It kind of
Yeah.
died down a little because last year, 2020 and all that. It's like, it's like, I live in a van. Okay, where are you going? You can't go anywhere. Park it over there. Okay. Today, on my van travels, I'm in the same camping site or the same car park as I was last week and the week before. It's like ta-da.
Yeah. I think the van life movement lost a lot of people during the lockdown.
Look, baby, it was all good when we were traveling around seeing new stuff, but I need to have 4 walls. I need 4 walls, baby. So I
Yeah.
take it
Need
as,
a roof.
as
Need
yeah,
a
a
roof.
roof. Like what's that? And a hot shower. I mean, oh God. I met a
Toilet.
crossroads demon and he just went, I'll give you a hot shower for your soul. I was tempted. I was tempted. But yeah, I take it the van life or the vehicle life was not for you. Maybe in the future, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I am a very minimal person. I would love to live like that.
Yeah.
Patrick has a lot of tools and a lot of hobbies. And so I don't think that would be feasible, but I would love to be able to do it like for maybe like a month or take like a couple months off from work and travel because we haven't seen a lot of New Zealand. And I really regret that. I have seen a lot of New Zealand. I had the opportunity to travel a lot when I was younger with my
Mhm.
parents. But when Patrick got here, we pretty much just started working right away. New Zealand is great with its holiday. I don't need to tell you that because you're in the UK. But for the Americans listening, that was one of the biggest draws is like you actually have holiday time. Your boss actually lets you leave the office or take time off or use your sick leave. And you can't get fired for, having children or trying to take a sabbatical or whatever it may be. So that was definitely one of the draw points of New Zealand. So
Yeah, well, like, okay, let's just rub it in for the poor American like listeners. So you say you get vacation time. How
yeah.
much vacation time do you get from your job?
So it's interesting. Every industry is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So my most recent job was working as an office manager of a local school, and so I got all the school holidays, which was great. And then over Christmas holiday, that's about I think it's about 5 or 6 weeks, which is great. And so, but Patrick, he's in the construction industry, and he gets about 4 weeks. Well, that was at his last job. But now that we work for ourselves, we can basically take any time off we want, which is really great. So we're really, really thankful that we could go out on our own, so we can make our own schedules.
Uh, was that one of the things like this sort of juxtaposition with the sort of work-life balance that you get in the United States in New Zealand, which kind of was like, what? You mean I can live life like this rather than like that? Was
Yeah.
that one of the things?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I mean, even for me, and I had been to New Zealand before, I understood the difference in the work culture. It was just so shocking
Mm.
how much of a rat race some Americans find themselves in. And I think that's the reason I'm 31 years old and I have not yet had a gray hair is literally because I'm living in New Zealand.
It's like I haven't had a gray hair too. No, no gray hair on me at all. Look, look at my chin now.
It's crazy.
I've seen
It's
things.
crazy.
It's like I've seen things.
And
So,
it's just the stress of your environment. And there's nothing you could do about sitting in traffic, living in a big city, dealing with road rage people and people honking at you and things. I can't remember the last time I sat in traffic for longer than like 5 minutes, just because I live in such a small town here. It's different for people up in Auckland or whatever, but it's just such a more chill lifestyle here. People, when you go out and meet new people and talk to them, they actually talk about the things that make them happy. Like most of my conversations don't start with, what do you do for a living? It's, so what do you like to do? Like, oh, I'm into surfing. There's a lot of surfers in our town. I love pottery. There's a lot of people who are into the arts in the area that I live in. So people really live, they work to live. They don't live to work. And I think that's really key.
yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. No, when you go, yeah, oh, there's like traffic in Auckland. Like I live in London. I'm almost really like, oh, you call this traffic? you call this traffic? Just like, go, you people don't know nothing. It's like nothing at all. I remember interviewing a lady who basically she moved from Mexico City to LA, and she was like,
Oh,
yeah, like she's the only person I can say who would ever say this. She goes, yeah, it was nice to move to a smaller city. LA, it's like a smaller city. It's like going, does that go, okay, wow. But
yeah.
that's the sort of juxtaposition of Mexico City, 30 million people, and then some, to like LA when you're like, yeah, it's nice. It's not that bad. Yeah, a little bit of
It's
traffic.
all relative. It's all
Yeah.
relative. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, you tell me about it. It is all relative, but like it's still one of those things that always blows my mind. You kind of look at one place of the world and you look at another, and it's like, wow. But like, yeah, I have to ask, like, this is the thing. when did you sort of start getting into, like you say, yeah, you managed to save that 20 grand back up from basically saving money on your rent and everything like this. When did you sort of like go, you know what? I've read about the FIRE movement. I've listened about the FIRE movement. I've watched YouTube videos about the FIRE movement. And now I'm doing the FIRE movement. When did you start doing that? Yes.
I think I think saving, that's the core of the FIRE movement, is just really being able to utilize that muscle. And it really is just a muscle. It's kind of like a combination of self-discipline,
yep.
Investing. So thinking outside the box, taking a little bit of risk, not like, depending on how much risk you want to take, you can get all the way into crypto. You can just save your money in your savings account. So flexing the saving muscle, being, budgeting, being open-minded and taking challenges. Really, I think you have to do all those things kind of separately to give yourself time to adjust. So for our saving muscle, when we were moving to New Zealand, that was really the first time I had a set goal I wanted to save for. So Patrick sold his motorcycle and he put that money into our savings account, and I could see it grow. And so that on my part, I would take like a side job over the summer, and I'd put that extra money into our savings account. And then, I would sell my furniture, or I owned a condo in Boston. My mom and I went half in a condo. And so when I had a renter come in there, that down payment, or, what's it called? Deposit, right? So all that little bit of stuff started adding up into our savings account. And that was flexing that muscle. It's like, okay, we're not going to go out. We're not going to go splurge on money on a trip. We're not going to do this and that. We're just going to focus on saving for this goal. And so knowing that you can have a goal and achieve it reinforces it in your mind that it's not that bad to make small sacrifices in order to have a set goal. So another thing is getting used to the idea of good and bad debt. I think that's another really key component for the FIRE movement. So my husband, unfortunately, he was in a really bad accident when he was younger, and he had a lot of medical debt. And as you know, in the States, there's no universal health care or anything. And this was before basically the new Health Care Act came into play with that Obama passed. So he was 18 years old. He had just gotten kicked off of his mom's healthcare, and he had a horrible accident. So he had, I think, over $18,000 worth of medical debt. Thankfully, he was in a state where if you can't pay your medical debt, that it gets wiped after 7 years. If he was literally in any other state, I think he would still be in the US right now trying to pay off his medical debt. So he was 18 years old. He was delivering pizza. I mean, how is an 18-year-old supposed to pay for that kind of debt? He had facial reconstructive surgery. It's awful. So
yeah, that is mental. I got to say, like I live in the UK, like lived in the UK all my life, and like, look, yes, I love it or hate it. Like some people criticize it, but like, yes, the NHS is there. Like if I get into an accident or anything like this, the thing I would have to pay for is most probably my medication, but yeah, but all other treatment is technically free. So yeah. So it's like, yeah, that boggles my mind. That boggles my mind. So you were talking about, good debt and bad debt. And like, unfortunately, Patrick, your fella, had 18 grand of medical debt, which thankfully was written off because after 7 years. So like when you say good debt and bad debt, what would those be? Because like, look, people just sometimes look at debt as just debt,
Yeah. So after Patrick had his accident, his credit score was absolutely trashed because he owed that much money to the hospital. And so he wasn't ever able to get a credit card. So that meant that if he wanted to buy purchase something, to help improve his credit score, he wouldn't be able to do that. So that also means that, and it's just basically the poverty tax, more or less. Is if you don't have a good credit score, then that means you're less likely to be able to get a rental property. You're less likely to be able to get a brand new phone. You can't open your own utilities. You can't get a car on a lease. A lot of different things are more expensive and more challenging to get if you don't have a good credit score. So he was obviously very apprehensive about getting a credit card because he never had one when we moved to New Zealand, and he was 27 years old, never had a credit card before. So, which is crazy.
Yeah. I understand that. It's like 27, that's like no credit card. It's like, wow. Yeah. I think as soon as I hit 18, they were like sending me letters to, hey, you want a credit card? 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 I find like I finally gave in around about 2021, and they were like, haha, gotcha. It's like,
awful. It's awful. It's very predatory. But if you use your credit card as a tool to help build your credit score, then that you don't have to get a mortgage. You don't have to do whatever you want with it, but having options, because you never know. I mean, the situation that we're in the world tells you and shows you that you never know what's going to happen. So having that as another cushion, as another backup, is really, really beneficial. And then in the States, and not so much here in New Zealand, but there are a lot of credit cards that give you bonus points and benefits for paying off or spending a certain amount of money. So once we got comfortable enough in our situation, we were able to get a credit card that gives us extra points at the end of the month. And so we use those for travel points, but now we just get the bonus points because there's nowhere to travel to. So we put all of our gas, all of our groceries, all of our small day-to-day purchases like cat food and stuff on this one credit card, even though we have enough money to pay for it individually if we wanted to use our own debit card, and we pay it off every month. And then at the end of the month, we get $30, $40, $50, which pays for the credit card fee, but we also get to have that little bit of extra money floating around in there, which is helpful. And our credit score is healthy enough that if we, in a horrible case scenario, if my car broke down tomorrow, if we needed a new couch, if whatever, horrible thing, knock on wood, happened, that we'd have the flexibility for it. So understanding that, like being able to pay off your credit card on a regular basis is a great way to practice paying off a mortgage payment on a regular basis. So I think it's just like I said before, it's a muscle and you have to practice flexing that muscle on a regular basis. And so starting small and getting bigger, I think that's just what most people found is the easiest way to get into the FIRE movement, because at the end of the day, like you're really capable of anything if you have that muscle, primed and ready to go.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And like, this is the thing with regards to sort of credit. Look, one of the things when you sort of get into the realms of financial YouTube or the FIRE movement, there's sort of like a couple of people which sort of really sort of pop up on a regular basis. Ask Kevin, Grant Stephan. I don't know if you know them. Yeah, basically with regards to like, because it's American centric, like the whole sort of credit card sort of churning like movement, which is there as well. Is it on the same level in New Zealand as the United States, or like, obviously, like you shaking your head, I imagine it's better over in America, land of competition.
That's absolutely it. And actually, it's surprising. I didn't realize this, but the majority of banks in New Zealand are owned by Australian companies. So there is actually, I think there's only one New Zealand owned bank here that you can even bank with. Ooh. And so everything else is just so Australian centric. And there just is not, you're absolutely right. It's the competition. There's no competition. And so mostly the only credit card churning you can do is to get what they call flyby points or air points, which you could only use on Air New Zealand, which is the only news, it's very incestuous. Just a small country.
It's like, welcome to New Zealand. You're in the system now, gal.
You only spend your dollars with us here.
Like that song of the company store comes to mind. You work all day for the company store. I see. Like, so like with this, would you say it's affected many of the sort of strategies and plays you may have put in for your FIRE movement? Like, because am I right in saying that if you're in the FIRE movement, there is a number, the magic number, which is like, yes, that's my point of like financial independence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so it's kind of varied. It's like, it's almost, I think it's kind of hard to put ourselves in a little box just because our situation is a little bit different than some other people's. But I'd say the closest for us.
I would say this to you, just sorry to interrupt.
No,
I'll never put you in a little box. I'll put you in a little house, but not a little box. You were
see what you did there.
I'm a lad, I'm a character. Bit woo, bit wah. Yeah, you go.
It was really good. So I don't want to put myself in a tiny house, but I am in one sometimes. But I would say that FIRE barista would be the closest to us because we like to work, especially now that we're working for ourselves and I've written my book. It doesn't bring in a whole lot of money because I'm a new author. Yep. But we are planning on working for as long as we can. So the number that we've hit, I think that can almost be a little deceiving because your net worth, you can have a very large net worth, but it can all be sunk in a house. So for example, our net worth is mostly our house that we've built. Mm-hmm. But you can't access that. I can't, start chipping away at the wall and use that to pay for my groceries.
That'd be like, yeah.
I mean, wood is worth a lot. So maybe I'll take a few beams out of the roof. But so we do have a number in mind. We are planning on doing FIRE barista, but we do like working. And we're really just it's weird how your goals change as you get older. Yeah. When we were younger, we weren't sure about having kids. We weren't sure about even having a house. But now that we do, and now that we have room, we're rethinking our plan a little bit, and we'll see. Things change. And honestly, starting a business has taken a lot of upfront starting costs. So that's another expense. And we haven't really been saving because we want this business to go well. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of putting a stopper on things, but I'm really glad we made sure that we were in a healthy place financially. We have the tiny houses on Airbnb, so that's bringing in a small amount of income. And if we ever absolutely have to, we can always move out of this house, go right back into the tiny house and rent this place out if we have to. So there's that. House swapping.
Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. So, you mentioned like FIRE barista. How many levels is in the FIRE movement? Because I honestly don't know. Look, I know the FIRE movement is about financial independence, but when you go FIRE barista, I'm like, okay, is that a belt or something like that? It's like, do you get some type of mystical power? I am now FIRE barista.
Yes. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of complexities to it. And honestly, it overwhelms me personally because, like I said, I don't like being put in a box. And so with all these different streams, I think I use them more as guidelines and understanding the thought process and the intention behind them. So there's like fat FIRE. That's where you like just go hard and you have the biggest number that you possibly can. There's lean FIRE where you just make sure you keep your living expenses very low. And so that makes you achieve your goal number a lot faster. And then there's barista FIRE, where saying that you have the bulk of your day-to-day living expenses covered by your savings, but you need to supplement your lifestyle with a small part-time job that you can switch and choose out, do seasonally. It doesn't have to be a barista job, but that tends to be like the benchmark, I guess. It's just basically a minimum wage job that you need to work on a part-time basis to be able to afford one utility bill, and everything else you can cover with your savings. Mm-hmm. And that 100% is my opinion. Don't come for me if you're on the FIRE movement.
I'm not gonna come for her. Like, yes, code 24567. We've got our coordinates locked in. Your extraction team out there now. And now, yes, we're coming for you. We're all coming for you. Now, so yes, ominous tones aside, yes.
Yeah, right.
So with this, now you've started up your own business. Look, a tiny house, going across, like halfway across the world, to a small country, then dragging your poor fellow with you, and then working in the school, then building a tiny house, and that wasn't enough, as well as writing a book, and you decided to look, we haven't got to the book yet, but we'll get there. But you decided to start a business. What is this business about, and why?
So Patrick had owned a business back in the States, and he started it with his twin brother. It was called Twin Brothers Welding, and he loved it. But unfortunately, he had to close it because he was moving to New Zealand. But it was a really great foray into just being able to own something, make your own hours, set your own pricing, be your own boss. And so we wanted to do something kind of in that same vein. So we opened a contracting business. So it's basically just a very small welding contracting business. He had been slowly accumulating all the kind of tools that he needed, which some people do and don't have in New Zealand. So that was kind of where we wanted to position ourselves, that he would have every tool imaginable so that he could do any job that, got thrown his way. He's not a huge company, obviously, so we don't have a huge overhead. We just do most of our work in our yard. And he builds a variety of things to keep our income coming in. Mm-hmm. So when things are slow on a construction job, he'll build a trailer. If somebody wants something done, particularly to code or something, or to a spec, he'll do that. So he did a one-off table, and he helps other people put things in their houses, install things, or helps people, do all sorts of stuff. So he really is quite the handy guy. And so I make sure that he feels confident going out, that he has all the uniforms that he needs, decals on his truck. Mm-hmm. I, field phone calls, take care of the emails, and I do all of the books. So the accounting and all that stuff. Yeah. So we're a good team, and it works out, and it's been a lot of fun.
My God. So I can imagine the sort of new challenges that it must present, because okay, look, welding is one of those things which it's a skill, and depending on what you're welding is highly sought after, and can be quite lucrative if you're the welder in question. Having that in I don't honestly know how many welders are in New Zealand, but if they're short of doctors, nurses, and surgeons, a welder is definitely going to be up there. So how has business been for him, yourselves, I should say, just starting out?
It's been good. It's been up and down. So we started in April. So we haven't even been in business for a full year yet. So we started in April, and then we had about a month period where we couldn't work at all because we were in lockdown. That's when COVID-19 reemerged in New Zealand. So that was quite worrisome, but we were able to do stuff around the house. And because our Airbnb is also based on the tourist industry, we didn't have any guests coming through, but that has since restarted, which has been really good. So I manage that as well. And so it's mostly just Kiwis who are traveling on road trips. We allow dogs. So a lot of people travel with their dogs and stay in our tiny house, which is great. So it's been up and down, but we're just in an exciting city. Dunedin is growing. First of all, house prices are going up. And when people move into a city, they also need amenities, right? So we're building a new hospital in Dunedin too. So looking forward, we know that this was a good time to start a business, because they're going to need all hands on deck to get this new hospital built. And so hopefully Patrick will be involved in that. So that's what we're looking forward to.
Perfect. You know what? I say good luck with the new venture. I'm sure it'll grow
Yeah.
into a mighty one, I'm sure. So like, yeah. Now, with this, like business aside, yeah, keeping Patrick busy, keeping him running around. Yeah, keeping yourself like slightly busy as well. You had time to create a book. What is this book called?
The book is called South Island Tiny House, and that is the name that I've bequeathed to our tiny house. So if you Google that, you'll see our website, you'll see our Airbnb. We have a YouTube channel. And so I figured, why reinvent the wheel? Just name my book the same thing as, as everything else.
Branding, branding, powerful.
Yeah, there we go. Lazy, lazy.
You want to say that on air. You like, yeah, it's like you want to like come across like, yeah, just like time management skills, like, yeah, branding, like, yeah. Look, read the book. It'll help you get there. Oh, forward focus, thinking, vision, purpose. Come on now, come on. That's what you
It
need.
was it's just a passion project. Honestly, it was bubbling up in me from the blog that we kept when we first built the tiny house. So I had some great photos on there with a really crappy camera at the time. I had, some thoughts, some jots, some, trialing times, some great times. And then I just kind of wanted to talk about just some of the issues that we had
Mm,
navigating the tiny house movement, because when we built back in 2015, sorry, it was still quite new. We were kind of feeling our way. We didn't know a lot of people who were building tiny. I would go to hardware stores and people would be like, what's a tiny house? I don't understand. And I'm like, it's like talking to a wall. It's so hard to explain what you're trying to do and what you're trying to build. So I just wanted to like just put all of my thoughts and all of our ideas in one place so that I could literally, my goal was to have my book inside of the tiny house, about the tiny house. That's just what I just imagined, is the book sitting on the shelf in the tiny house, so that the whole story could be in one place, for all time.
well, for all time in a tiny house. How long did it take you to create the book?
A long, long time. And it's really not even that long either. Writing a book really has just unearthed so much about myself and how much self-doubt I have, overcoming feelings of inadequacy, just imposter syndrome. It's actually it's people say it's like, just I don't even know how to describe
Oh, oh, no, I understand where you're coming from because, like, this is the thing. Even if you're well versed and practiced in something in life, it's one of those things where it's like you kind of doing it, you're going through the motions, and like, yeah, you may have done it 100, 200 times, but there's this always this thing of you might look at someone else and go, yeah, they're doing it better, and they've been doing it for a short time. Like, have I just been faking it to make it? But here's the thing, you are not faking it, you're actually doing it. It's just a case of that little voice of doubt, which keeps fucking with you on a like regular basis. That's what you got to fight against. And look, everyone feels that realm of being an imposter, being it from parents to like corporate CEOs to like, hey, like even welders out there, you know what I mean? But it's just like, yeah, overcoming that voice and like, yeah, like looking at each day when you've pushed yourself, you've gone through that moment and gone, look, okay, yeah, the other day I did that. And like, yeah, 6 months ago, oh my God, remember where we were 6 months ago? Remember where we were a year ago? Like, dear
it.
God, like I can imagine you and Patrick on a cold Boston night, like going, New Zealand. Yeah. It's been like, it's been, yeah, 6 years, 6 years almost now for you. And look, you're still going strong, well settled, and yeah, strong member of the community, I take it.
We're trying. We're trying. But yeah.
I should hope so, because like your parents are coming out there soon. Yeah.
No, we're good. We're good. We love the town we're in. And yeah, starting a business, writing a book it's really actually a really great way. Even like I has given me so many opportunities. I've never been on a podcast before. So this is a whole new realm for me, just putting myself out there, public speaking, talking to people about it. Even writing your own bio is something that I've like never done before. I mean, you write a resume, but a bio is something totally different. So it's definitely been a great, great adventure. I'm really glad I did it. I'm glad I finished it. But yeah, like you said, everybody deals with, the imposter syndrome and feelings, of not being quite sure about things. But yeah, it took me since I started building the tiny house in 2015 to now to write the book. So it's I would work on it, put it off, work on it, put it off, be like, I'm just going to scrap all this, or, I can't finish it, or, now I have to pay for, an editor and all that stuff. So yeah, it's more expensive than you think, but it's more worthwhile in the end than I think most people realize. Yeah.
I'm loving that. Loving that. Oh, I have to ask, dare I say it, am I the first person to give you a podcast interview?
I did do one last week, but I don't know when that's going to be released. So I have one practice.
I thought this was going to be something special.
I know. I'm so sorry. I can't do that for you today. God. But it's fun. It's such a huge learning experience. And your podcast is totally different than the other one I did, which was tiny house focused. So I didn't even have a chance to talk about the money part or moving to New Zealand, all that stuff. So yeah, it's good. Good balance. Good balance.
What can I say? What can I say? Yes. But I'm liking the fact, okay. Yes, I'm the second person's interviewed for the podcast. I'm not going to sulk about it at all. I'm not going to be like, I'm going to be mature and responsible. And just not going to throw a tantrum or anything like this. Just talk really a lot like this at all. Like not really just going off on a ramble.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh my God.
So with this, with all the world traveling you've done, with like studying left, right, and center, with like getting yourself a fella who you proposed to, by the way. That's a tasty little nugget for another day. Like who you proposed to, dragged from Boston, Massachusetts, all the way over to New Zealand, with basically doing your MBA as well as picking up a little bit of French on the way in your life travels. And then building a tiny house, then writing a book, starting a business, and doing a few Medium like blogs and a YouTube channel. So dare I ask, which direction would you like your life to go into next?
That's such a hard question. I can see so many different paths. But I think for now, I think this is going to be our home base. And we've talked about this, Patrick and I have talked about this, but we really love the place that we live. We love our home. So we want to be able to enjoy it for a little bit longer, at least. And then, I think we might want to, do a new challenge, travel maybe, or maybe get into real estate, or I think so my grandmother, who I lost last year, she had some land that had been in the family since basically after the Civil War. So it's been inherited, from my ancestors who were slaves. And so we have some land in Texas, and I would really love to be able to build something there or put some, because it's just bare land right now. The old, I guess it was a shotgun house. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I have not heard the term shotgun house. Please, I'm
So
here to learn. Yes.
it was basically you still see some of them in Texas around in the Palestine area. I don't actually know what county that is, but it was a type of structure that was so simple for basically really poor African Americans to build, but it was so simple that if you opened the front door and you opened the back door, you could shoot a shotgun straight through it. So it just had a hallway and rooms off of it. So a cool shotgun house, I think, would be really cool to rebuild there. But who knows? So maybe we'll do that, and maybe we won't. But that's kind of in the back of my head as a bucket list thing, you know.
I see. Like I'm now more fascinated about who tested out this theory. Okay, like you open that door, I open this door, and like, yeah, we're gonna get this shotgun, we're gonna fire. Like just like some kids like, are you sure that's a good idea? No. Yes. Like, okay.
Don't walk across the hallway at the wrong time. I'll tell you what.
Just like, you got me in the cheek. No, you sons of bitches. Just like, yeah. I'm going down. Like, oh God, Lord Jesus, help me. Got shot in the hallway.
Yeah,
I'll make you pay.
Shot in the hallway of my own house. Yeah, I'm sure that did actually probably happen.
Okay, yeah, you know what? Anything's possible in Texas. Anything.
Well, everything in Texas, yes.
Oh, brilliant. So I have to ask, most probably this will be the final question. Then I'll let you free. Like out on the day in New Zealand. A lovely Tuesday morning, fingers crossed. Monday evening here. Oh, yes. So
Crazy.
Oh, absolutely. That's time difference for you. So now, I am a being of supreme cosmic power. I can grant you one wish.
Mm-hmm.
Before you say anything, you can't wish for all the wishes in the world. You can't wish for an infinite amount of wishes. You can't write down on a piece of paper to like, oh yeah, everything on this list, make it come true. No, you can't have that. You can't wish for COVID or like world peace because look, I just to get a vaccine into this, into this world, you have no idea. I had to cross the powers of Dolly Parton and Beyonce. That is a mix and a half. That's too much. That's just too much cosmic power I have to draw on. The deals I've had to make, the sacrifices. I can't do that. I can't do it again. Now,
I won't make you.
Oh. No, it's like never again. It's like look, I have to draw on the spirit of Whitney Houston as well. No, that is just too much. It's like, yeah, you see that look on your face. You're like, Whitney, yeah. It's like,
we'll bring Whitney into it. Not again.
Oh, it's like, yeah, that just releases the dark powers of Oprah Winfrey on. It's like, yeah, I am Oprah. No, it's like.
Oh my
God. So, what would your one wish be? And you can't wish to destroy Oprah. That's just come back to you tenfold. It's like,
I think I would want to give my wish to someone else. I think I feel so blessed in my life, and I feel so thankful for everything that I have and everything that I've had or had to go through to lead me to this moment. I'm thankful for it and grateful for it. And yeah, and I mean, any wish that I want, I can make it come true anyway. So I think I would like for you to give my wish to someone else.
You know what? I'd love to go. Gratitude and belief in oneself. Very, very, very noble. Very good. and give it away. Yeah, great. I wouldn't say that's copping out or like, yeah, just like dodging a bullet. No, no. I'm not that type of person. Yeah. Who would you give your wish to? Which family member? Oh, you see, you just
Um,
made it worse for yourself right there. What?
I think no. I think I would give it to my sister. I
Okay.
think I would give it to my sister. Yeah. Yeah.
Why your sister?
I think that she is in a place that I was in a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
And I think it was just before I had my Morpheus moment, red pill, blue pill kind of situation. Whereas like, do you want to continue living your life to someone else's standards or do you want to do your own thing? And yeah, and I think that that just happened after I lost my grandmother. And I looked at my work and I looked at my job and how much I was getting paid, my skills, my hobbies, my talents, my interests. And I was like, this isn't matching anymore. And I think a lot of people had that realization. They call it the great resignation. People are like, this is not the industry I signed up for. This is not the boss I want to, see every morning. This is not the commute I want to do every day. I want to work from home. I want to do X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
So I had my moment, and yeah, I wish that other people would be able to see that. And I think my sister is right in that spot right now. And I think she needs her sister. And she's in New York and I'm here. So the next best thing I could give her is a wish.
Okay. No worries. Okay. I'll pass that on to her. She won't know it, but yeah, it'll come. It'll come. But yes,
Good.
oh, nice. I'm liking that. I'm liking that. I got to say yes with the Great Resignation. It was one of those vibes you got last year. It was like, okay, after sort of 3 months in, it was like, okay, yeah, people are going to be starting to reassess what they want from life
Mhm.
and making it happen. And now I think it's a case of a number of people are executing on that,
Yeah.
and we shall see where it takes them. Hopefully, onto better pastures, and yeah, they can like fulfill some of their dreams, like you have.
Yeah. It's worthwhile. I mean, life is so short. Don't make someone else happy. Make yourself happy. Honestly, that's what I believe. And yeah, so yeah, I think everyone should be able to be able to tap into their dreams, take times to dream, because you don't if you don't even take the time to dream and daydream and think about what you want out of life, then you won't know, and you'll feel unfulfilled and you won't know which direction to go into. So take time to dream, and start small and just go for it. You don't really have anything to lose.
There you go. On that happy note, I think we should end it there. Like, yeah, go for it. Ain't got nothing to lose. Boom. Yes, Karina, can you tell the lovely people out there how they can find you in the big wide world of webs?
So our YouTube channel is called Pat and Corey South Island Tiny House. It's PATCORI is my name, Corey. And if you go on our YouTube channel, you'll see all of our other links to my Amazon book, which is South Island Tiny House. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I have a Medium channel. I do write some articles on Medium. But yeah, and my book at the end of my book has a lot of my links too. But if you're ever in New Zealand, you're ever in Dunedin, please give me a bell, and I'd love to have you stay in my tiny house. And I'd love to meet you.
Yeah, there you go. My invitation secure. I'll be there in about 2 months' time. Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Excellent. Karina, Corey, I'd like to say thank you for coming on to the podcast today. You have been a
Thank
delight.
you. Thank
Oh,
you. Thanks for having me.
the pleasure's all mine. The pleasure's all mine. And I'd like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, for sticking with us, staying with us up until this point. You have been wonderful. She has been wonderful. I have been awesome, supreme, godlike. Yeah, you know what I mean? All of the things, all of the, how can I get all the accolades because it's about me. Me. Me, I told you. Yes. But yes, I'd like to say thank you, my friends, my life warriors, for staying with us. Please stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic, be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. Have a great day, guys. Peace and love to you. Peace. And we are.